Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today I've got a really special guest from the world of Bitcoin, DeFi, and all things Rootstock, and that is Tomas. Welcome to the channel, mate.
Thank you. It's great to be here and always keen on talking about Bitcoin and what is being built on Bitcoin.
Absolutely, and you're at the forefront of that. You are in Australia at the moment, but you've got an interesting background from Argentina, which also ties to a lot of what we're going to talk about today. I guess maybe just to begin with, you've been at a few events lately and everything, but maybe tell us a bit of the background, sort of personally, and how you got into the world of crypto and Bitcoin.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Argentina, and I've been in Australia for the last 7 years, and before that I lived in the US. So I left Argentina a while back because of the lack of opportunities, especially economic opportunities. Like the economy over there is no secret that it has not been doing well
Yeah,
almost its entire history of the country, almost. When I was in Argentina, I was studying philosophy, and that's what first made me aware of Bitcoin and interest in Bitcoin. I didn't have any money to invest back then, but it attracted me in a deep philosophical way. This idea of freedom money and a money that was outside of the control of the state,
mm,
especially in places like Argentina, where the state is very hands-on with the monetary issuance,
yeah,
and that's what creates a lot of our troubles.
yeah,
So the idea was immediately very interesting to me. I honestly thought it was a great idea, that it wasn't going to catch on because I didn't feel like the rest of the world would understand it. And when I used to speak with my friends and my study groups, I always used to say that I'm sure that the money of the future would look a lot like Bitcoin.
mm,
I was not sure it was going to be Bitcoin.
yeah,
And then when I started traveling in the US, and when I came here in Australia, I started getting more active, and I started investing and acquiring my first Bitcoins around 2017 during that bull cycle. And then once the after the big run up, we got the drown back, and that's when I got started learning a lot during that time. A lot of the things that were being built on Bitcoin, all these different tools like DeFi tools, stable coins, and getting a lot more in depth into the whole crypto space.
yeah,
And I started creating content. I started just trying to learn as much as I could and just share what I was learning. And I was making articles and I was making videos. I was doing everything that I could and experimenting with different ways of communicating what I was learning. And that's how I got started collaborating with DAOs, which to me, as someone that came from a different country, came into Australia, I didn't know anyone. I had almost no money. So the idea that I could collaborate with these organizations that don't have a residence,
yeah,
that they were not asking me like, what's your CV or what's your history.
yeah,
They just wanted to know, like, they saw my content and they were like, okay, we know you understand this technology and you can communicate. So
yeah,
and started getting all those kinds of partnerships. So to me, crypto was not only a way of investing and try to make more money. It was also philosophically a way to get away from the meddling hands of governments.
yeah,
But also it represented an opportunity for me to find work with people that had the same values that
yes.
I did.
Yeah,
So
and just
yeah,
for people at home beginning their crypto journey, DAOs are decentralized autonomous organizations. So think of a group, a community, or a business where you can even have anonymity or whatever, as you've touched on there, people with similar views or technical beliefs. And interesting, you said about philosophy. I think sometimes we forget there's so many layers to the Bitcoin or the crypto world in general, or where it came from originally in that ethos. And some people are attracted to it because of the computer science. Some people philosophy, and even things like the speculation, they're all important components because that wealth that it generates brings more attention and that brings more capital to reinvest. So I think every different dimension, it's great that we've got that whole spectrum of people getting into crypto for different reasons.
Yeah. I think like you say, it's a very big space, and you can enter from very different angles. And to me, I'm inherently a very curious person, so I try to learn about all the different aspects, and that's always one thing that drives me. So I want to learn, and I want to understand, and I want to see what new things are being built.
Yeah.
So I started collaborating with a lot of different DAOs, and that's when I got into the Rootstock ecosystem, which very attracted me very much because it was a way of bringing all the crypto stuff and tying it up with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And because for me, like philosophically, Bitcoin was my entry point into the space, I found in that ecosystem a lot of people that were thinking very similar to me. So I started just creating content around Rootstock because I felt very passionate about their technology and their approach. And then at some stage, Rootstock decided to create an ambassador program, and I was the first person they invited to join. So I'm one of the very earliest ambassadors. I've been doing that for the last, I think it's over 3 years now. And in that time, I was also collaborating with the different teams that were deploying on Rootstock. So Rootstock, just for the listeners, is another blockchain. That it's connected to Bitcoin, and we will explore that more in depth, I'm sure. But on top of Rootstock, you have a lot of different dApps, a lot of different DAOs, a lot of different applications. So I've been working as an ambassador for the Rootstock blockchain, but also I've been collaborating with the different teams that are building on top of Rootstock.
Yeah, the entire ecosystem that we see now flourishing on many different technologies that are trying to scale Bitcoin, which is great. A bit of the history for people at home. Rootstock has actually been around since, 2014 or 15, pre-Ethereum, and people like Vitalik were toying with ideas like colored Bitcoins akin to like an NFT, or a way to make a Bitcoin or a transaction output unique and that kind of thing. So these ideas of how to scale Bitcoin and how to add more technology have been around for maybe a lot longer than people realize, 10 years now. But I guess, do you want to maybe talk about that, the technology upgrades that have made this flourishing more possible for Rootstock and maybe some of these other scaling technologies that we're seeing coming to Bitcoin, and why this is now the really exciting time?
Yes, definitely. So Rootstock, just to give a bit of perspective, it was launched in 2018, and it was designed by someone from Argentina, which also there I found a very interesting connection. And I always say that necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And to me, the fact that Rootstock got started in Argentina, a place where it's plagued with all the problems of the traditional system, makes absolute sense to me. Like, of course, something like Rootstock is going to be born in the place where people need it the most.
Yeah.
And some of the applications that are built now on Rootstock are from Latin America. They have Latin American origins and Latin American teams. And the focus of Rootstock has always, even if you go and you read the white paper, it has a lot of emphasis on providing financial services to those places where people, they don't have good services.
Yeah.
So Argentina, Latin America has a lot of users in Africa as well. That is not to say that you cannot use it and you cannot benefit from it if you're not there.
Yeah.
But a lot of the messaging and a lot of the marketing is targeted specifically to those communities for that reason in particular.
Yeah.
But yeah, the creator of Rootstock, his name is Sergio Lerner, and he was a very early developer in Bitcoin. In fact, I think I'll have to recheck it, but I think he's the person that is credited to have found the most bugs in the Bitcoin core code.
Yeah.
And so he helped to fix a lot of that early problems in Bitcoin itself. He was also a very early developer in Ethereum. And basically, his thought when building Rootstock or imagining what Rootstock would be like was, how can I combine all the great stuff that Bitcoin gives me in terms of security, decentralization, all that great stuff that we all love Bitcoin for, and how can I combine that with the programmability that Ethereum is providing, and not only just the programmability, but something that Ethereum did that is amazing, that I don't think people give it enough credit for, is that they created an entire community of developers that are building towards a shared ecosystem, a shared idea. So they launched with this Solidity programming language, and now in terms of smart contract development, it's still the one that is mostly used. It's the one that most developers are drawn to, and that is a very valuable thing. So Rootstock tried to combine both things, and the idea was to create an EVM blockchain, but that it didn't have another token, so you could pay the gas fees with Bitcoin, and it used like it could drive its security from the Bitcoin miners themselves, and that way ensure a more decentralized network. And also, the fees that you pay in Rootstock, they go to the Bitcoin miners. So it's a way to make the security budget for the main Bitcoin chain stronger, because now the Bitcoin miners, they use something that's called merge mining, which was first theorized by Satoshi Nakamoto himself. So it's not like a new idea. It's something that it has been talked about since the origin of Bitcoin. And it's the idea that miners can mine both Bitcoin and Rootstock at the same time, almost without any additional cost or processing power required, and they can earn Bitcoin from both chains. So it's a way for miners to get more revenue. It's a way for you as a Bitcoin user to be able to do all the things that you do in Ethereum, but do it on a side chain. And you pay the fees with Bitcoin. That they were like, when you bridge your Bitcoin into Rootstock, you're locking BTC in the main chain, and you're creating this RBTC in Rootstock. It's always collateralized one-to-one. This bridge has been running since 2018. So far, there hasn't been any problems. I think it's the best way of creating a representation of Bitcoin in a different chain, at least for what I've explored in the entire space. It seems to be the most resilient and the most secure, and the one that requires less trust. And once you are in Rootstock, you can do everything that you do in Ethereum, and you pay the fees with this RBTC, and then all these fees get aggregated, and they get turned back into BTC and distributed to the Bitcoin miners. That's the entire process. And and it allows for a lot of really great use cases for Bitcoiners that don't want to use centralized stuff like lending, borrowing, all that stuff.
Fantastic explanation. So we've got the Bitcoin main chain, and we've got the Rootstock side chain, secured by that Bitcoin and that hash rate and the miners, pegged with RBTC. It's EVM compatible smart contracts. Hopefully everyone's got their head around that concept at home now. On the spectrum of Bitcoiners, and I'm sure you've seen this at meetups and online in Twitter and everything, we have the Bitcoin maximalists, some that believe that we shouldn't even have things like side chains and maybe even Rootstock, and some that are super happy to say Ethereum did things really well. Let's take the best of what they've done and learn from it and apply it and so on. So, where do you fall on that spectrum? And I guess we try to understand why everyone thinks that way, but where do you fall, and what are your thoughts on things like Bitcoin having NFTs and all the things that we've just mentioned?
Yes. I have a lot of encounters with Bitcoin Maxis that a lot of them, they don't like anything that's been built on Bitcoin. And a lot of time, like, I just think they're not understanding that, because oftentimes the criticism is like, well, Rootstock can't be as decentralized as Bitcoin. And to me, always what I say is like that. Like, Rootstock is not trying to replace Bitcoin. It's not that you need to bridge all your Bitcoins into Rootstock. Like, that's not what Rootstock is there for, right? Like, what's the utility of Rootstock? The utility of Rootstock is, do you want to do something else with your Bitcoin than holding it? Because if you just want to hold your Bitcoin for the long term, then there is no better place than having it in the main chain, have it in your hardware wallet, and forget about it, and you're completely set. You don't need to do anything else. But if you want to do something else, like for example, and I'm going to give something that I use Rootstock for. Last year, I got married. I wanted to take some of my money from Bitcoin to pay for the wedding. The wedding here in Australia are crazy expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I didn't want to sell my Bitcoin, and I didn't want to use a centralized application to borrow against my Bitcoins, because I've seen what happened with stuff like BlockFi and FTX.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do that. So I just bridge over the amount of Bitcoins that I wanted to use for collateral into Rootstock, and I went into one of the dApps called Sovryn. I deposited my Bitcoin. I took out a loan in stablecoins. I bridged those stablecoins out. I paid for my wedding, and then I just repaid my loan, and I got all my Bitcoins back.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky that in the process of me doing that, the time that it took for me to repay my loan, the Bitcoin went up in price. So the Bitcoin that I got back, I got back more money than what I paid to keep that loan open.
Yes. So for people at home, if the value of the Bitcoin goes up, it pays off the loan. But
Right.
conversely, if Bitcoin falls, you have to kind of top up that loan to prevent from getting liquidated. It's very similar
Exactly.
to make a DAI and using your ETH to borrow a DAI. So people should be familiar with that concept. Yeah.
Yes. And to me, like when I was looking for options on how can I pay this wedding, I went to the banks. I looked into all the traditional options, and it was all very complicated. It was to me, like the whole process, it was crazy. And with Rootstock, I did it. No KYC. I didn't have to ask permission for no one. I didn't have to show anything. I just signed a transaction with my digital wallet, and I got the money instantly.
Yeah.
And my Bitcoins were locked there, and I could see in the smart contract, and I could verify that they were not moving anywhere, that everything was there, everything was working. And the whole process was very simple, very straightforward. And like, again, like you said, you have to be careful with the collateral. Like, you need to understand the rules of the system, but the rules are completely transparent. They're completely clear, and you can see them, and you can choose to play that game, or you can choose not to.
Yeah.
But to me, like that is such a better way of doing things. And just to finish, now I'm contemplating going back to Argentina this year, and the fact that I can take all my Bitcoins with me, and I can, the same thing that I did here to pay for my wedding, I can do it in Argentina to do something else, because this has no borders. That also is such an incredible technology.
100%. And we see more and more everywhere around the world, just the way that, red tape and politics is making harder. I'm not sure if you've heard, but I tweeted this the other day that a banking friend of mine said that crypto is now on the banned industries list in Australia. So it's very, very hard to get banked as a business or an individual. We know how many questions they ask, and you've got to, the hoops you've got to jump through to put money in or get money out of crypto or to run a business and in that industry, even if you're just providing educational content. It's crazy, and it's not fair compared to downloading a Bitcoin wallet and you're banked, or going to Sovryn, a project that we keep harping on about. I think it's a fantastic project to borrow and a loan without a bank. So all these things are coming. I think going full circle to the Bitcoin maxis that just want Bitcoin to be Bitcoin. I agree. I think they're missing the point. Like, Bitcoin can always just be Bitcoin if you want it to be. It's these other things that don't affect it, don't put it at risk, just enable further utility. And ultimately, the big picture, we want the world to be kind of somehow backed by Bitcoin for a better economic freedom and all the things that we talk about. So I think
Yeah,
you've got to look big picture.
yeah, and talking about that world backed by Bitcoin, one of the great things that you can do on Rootstock is you can issue stablecoins that are backed with Bitcoin, and that I think is something that a lot of people are unaware of that it exists.
Yeah.
I was a part of the Sovryn team for sometimes I work directly with them, and I'm a fan of what they are building. There is another project called Money on Chain,
Yes.
and I work with that team as well, which is another team that got started in Argentina,
Yeah.
and they created the first Bitcoin-backed stablecoin called Dollar on Chain
Yeah.
(DOC).
Yes.
And you can go to the Money on Chain website and you can check exactly how many docs are issued at this very moment and how many bitcoins are backing those docs.
Yeah.
And I haven't checked today, but the last time I checked, very recently, there was like $20 worth of bitcoin for every doc issued. So it's like a super over collateralized stablecoin
Yeah.
that started in 2019. So it has gone through all the ups and downs of the Bitcoin cycle and the crypto cycle, and it has never depegged.
Mm.
And to me, that is something great, because now not only I can have in my wallet my Bitcoin assets, but I can also have dollar assets in the case that Bitcoin goes down and I need liquidity and I don't want to sell my Bitcoins when they're down.
Yeah.
And I don't have to have USDC or USDT, which are great solutions, but you're still exposing yourself to banking risks
Yeah.
and all this stuff that we are supposed to be trying to get away from.
Mm.
Whereas something like DOC, because their collateral is only Bitcoin, it exists purely on chain, and then it is much more insulated, and you can check everything in real time, which to me is wonderful. Especially like being born in Argentina, I have seen very first hands-on experience on what can happen when you operate with these black boxes that you don't know what's happening inside,
Yeah.
and it's very dangerous.
Yeah, so
So
for people at home, money on chain and dollar on chain, they're ones that we've done research on in our platform. And Uasu Finance is another one that we interviewed the other day, doing a similar thing, kind of allowing you to hedge and lock in the price and that type of thing for a given time. So, yeah, these projects are popping up everywhere, which just reminds me of almost like 2019 ETH winter, where there was so much exciting stuff happening. And we're getting into the bull market now, but a lot of people still unaware how to use this or that they exist. But just going back to Argentina, we had in the pre-interview talking about President, is it Milei, and the recent elections. We've seen El Salvador adopt Bitcoin, but you're actually saying that you don't believe they could be, a likely candidate to be the next ones to adopt Bitcoin. And some of these elections and political turmoil we're seeing all over the world. In the Argentinian case, it was more that people were sick of the established government, more so than pro a lot of some of these more radical ideas about abolishing the central bank and that type of thing. So yeah, do you want to give us your thoughts? Because you said you are going back to Argentina. So does that mean you think things are changing for the better?
Well, I'm always hoping for the best and preparing for the worst, as they always say.
Yeah.
And just before I go into the Argentinian topic, something that you mentioned earlier, that you said all these problems that Australian companies are having to open an account if you're dealing with Bitcoin and for crypto. I think that to me is a sign that what I said at the beginning, that necessity is the mother of invention. And in Australia, you don't have that necessity as strong as other places in the world.
Yes.
And that's why I see like a lot of this innovation, like Rootstock, is taking place elsewhere,
Yeah.
in the places where people actually need this stuff. And in Argentina, we just saw a new president being elected with these new radical ideas and very open to new technologies like Bitcoin. I do feel like, by watching all the content, especially from pro Bitcoin and pro crypto news, that I think they are not fully understanding the situation in Argentina, and they're very eager to celebrate something that seems to be good for their industry. which I completely understand. But there is a lot of nuances in Argentina that I'm not sure is being properly portrayed, because people are very eager to go and celebrate. We have a new pro-Bitcoin president, and this is going to be the new El Salvador, and all that stuff generates a lot of clicks and a lot of likes, and people share them. So I understand it, but just to give a context, and I will say that I have left Argentina almost 7.5 years ago. So, and I go over there every 2-3 years, but I have not been living in the situation for a little bit. So I don't have the most in touch information, but for all that I know and speaking with my friends and family, there are several things that people need to understand in order to get a better idea of what is happening. First, there is El Salvador did not have its own currency. So it was much easier for them to just be like, okay, we are fully exposed to the dollars. We have no control over it. If we have no control over money, it's easier for us to adopt this money that nobody can control, because we already don't have control. So we're not losing. In Argentina, it's different, because we do have our local currency, and it's a currency that it's terrible. It's like, I don't understand why people keep holding it, but the reality is that it is still a very useful currency for politicians to play political games. So even though this current politician that we just chose doesn't really like the peso, and I think that he wants to get rid of it. I don't necessarily think that he's pro Bitcoin. I just think he's more like a libertarian, like he wants people to use whatever currency they want. But it's not entirely up to him. I don't think he is in that case like Bukele, that he could take these wild decisions, and he had the conviction to stick with them and to push through them even when the price was going down. Like I don't see Milei as that kind of character. And also, Milei was not. Most people didn't really vote for Milei. They voted against the guy that was running, which was the current standing president. And in order to understand that, you have to understand, like, in the history of Argentina, there is one political party, which is more like a political ideology, because it has several different parties, but they all share the same ideology, which is called Peronism, which is by the guy Juan Domingo Perón, which was a politician back in the right after the Second World War. He took over and he created this political ideology. And I don't know any political ideology anywhere else that is like this one, in the sense that people are very passionate about, while at the same time it's very dangerous and it's very harmful for them, because it's very much this idea of we are for the people and we're doing this for you. And that's when they start playing a lot of games with the currency, giving a lot of incentives for people, which in the long term ends up destroying the value of the currency itself. But because people are seeing the short-term improvements, they don't understand the long-term ramifications. So this is it's a political ideology that almost half of the country just at a very passionate level accepts and pushes forward, even though they don't understand why it's so harmful. So if you look at the political history of Argentina, you will see that most of our politicians that get elected align with this philosophy. Milei doesn't. He's the opposition. And the last government, which the political party, so not the same person, because they keep switching the person, but the political party has been in power for almost the better part of the last 20 years. And they have been proven time and time again to be the most corrupt political party that we've ever had in a history that is riddled with corruption. So it's like you grab the most corrupt people and then you say those are the most corrupt amongst all the corrupt, and that is, I think that is at this stage is very undeniable. And the amount of extraction that they've done in a country that is very rich, like Argentina is a huge country. It's among the top 10 biggest countries in the world. It has a lot of natural resources, massive exporter. So we should be one of the, well, at least we should be amongst the richest countries in the world. But we just have this constant extraction of value. And the problem is that the people that align with this Peronism philosophy, they have a lot of support of almost half the country. And the other half is very divided because they all are against the Peronism, but they don't agree with themselves. So that's why they always they keep winning and they keep themselves in power because they have that unified front.
Yes.
So Milei was a way that the opposition rallied with him, but not really because they agree with him. They just needed to unite their forces in order to get someone in power, just to get rid of the corruption. Okay. And in the previous election, going back 4 years back, again, the politician won, the opposition against Peronism won, and they put someone in power, and that person tried to do good things for the country. The problem is that when you try to do good things, you have to endure short-term pain. When you cut the incentives with the games that you're playing with the local currencies, the prices go up, and inflation goes up. And like, there is no way that you need to go through the short-term pain. It's almost like you take the drugs out of the drug addict and he needs to go through the rehab period.
Yeah.
And that period, like 4 years, is a very short term for a president to make these changes and start reaping the benefits. Yes. So you're only getting the short-term pain. And then the next election comes around and the same people come again with new incentives and new ideas of, we're just going to give you money, we're going to fix this for you, and people vote for them again. And we're stuck in this cycle. Yeah. So now Milei comes in. Again, it's not like he has a lot of support for his ideas. He has the support of people that want to keep the other people away. And his decisions will bring short-term pain, which is inevitable. And then the question is, will people go back once again in the next election once the other politicians come back promising all this stuff and incentives and all? Like, I am hoping for the best. I hope he does succeed. I hope he really opens up the currencies and there's a free flow of value, because if you do that, then the peso will become obsolete quickly. And then you take away that weapon that the other people keep using. But I don't know. A lifetime of seeing the politics of my country also makes me very, very. I see it's unlikely to happen. Yeah. I think he's going to face a lot of troubles of opposition. I wish him the best, but at the same time, from a practical standpoint, if I had to bet money on it, I'll probably bet that not much will change. Yeah. But hoping that I am wrong.
That's great. No, that's a fantastic explanation. Switching gears a bit back to Rootstock and some of the best projects and things you've seen. Did you want to talk about Zero Authority or other things that you've seen popping up that really interest you?
Yes. So I just did an interview with the Zero Authority team. They're doing something it's pretty great. They're using Stacks, which is another layer two of Bitcoin, trying to add different kind of functionality. They use a different programming language called Clarity.
Yeah, we have covered that in a fair bit of
All right.
detail on the channel and in our research. So hopefully people are familiar with stacks now as well. Yeah.
Nice, great. That saves us time. But what they're trying to do is they're creating a DAO to have reputation on chain. And to me, this is something that is really, really valuable. Like I said in the beginning, I started by collaborating with a lot of DAOs, a lot of different projects. And the reality is that a lot of that work, I don't have proof of that work necessarily. Like I personally, because I've always been creating content, I can point to my YouTube channel and people can see myself and my articles and my blog and all that stuff. But the idea behind Zero Authority DAO is that you can manage those working relationships through the smart contracts, so people can send you the job description and you can accept, and then there is that record, and the people that hired you can add things like, like, we're very happy with this work, and then you can start build your profile with all these accomplishments that you've done and the people that are vouching for you. So if I now go to a different DAO, I have that history that I can take with me, and people can check and they can be like, oh, this person is not just a random character and a random avatar in our Discord. He has all these working relationships and he has all these people that are vouching for him.
Yeah.
And that's all on chain. It can be tampered with. So to me, like I would have loved to have that tool from the very beginning. If I would have had all the stuff that I've done in the space in one place that I own, that is tied to my own wallet, and even the people from Zero Authority DAO, they cannot mess with that stuff.
Yeah.
It's fully open and fully transparent. It would be great, because every time that I go into a new community, a new DAO, like you can feel that the first moments, people are wondering, like, are you a scammer? Because there's full of scammers. Are you really who you're saying you are? Because there's so many people that are pretending to be people that they are not. And I think this tool would help for me to prove that I have all these working things that I've done and all these skills, and also for the DAO to be like, oh, he's someone that's been working in the space for a long time.
Yes.
We can establish trust much quicker, much faster.
Yeah.
So that's one of the projects that I even interviewed recently, and I'm very I like what they are doing. You mentioned Uasu. I spoke with Rafa as well. I think that's a very interesting project as well. Yeah. Very useful for Bitcoiners.
Fantastic. Yeah, I completely agree with the on-chain reputation. And we've seen things like this in Web3, Reddit points, or even things like Twitter follow account. And more recently in the crypto space, I guess, like airdrops and people trying to work out, well, who are they going to give the most to? Is it going to be the most volume or the most wallets? So, there's all this experimentation happening. But again, once you have something on chain that's censorship resistant and we have the history of it and whatnot, then it becomes a lot better. And I think we'll see with projects like the loans that you mentioned and things like that, if you have a better reputation and maybe you'll get a better interest rate or be able to borrow more with different collateralization ratios. So all these things add to the technology as well as the actual reputation of the individual.
Yeah. There is a saying that is, when you lose trust, everything becomes more expensive. But if you have a way to create this trust that you can verify, then, like you said, you could get a better rate. Like the reason why we need higher rates is because we can't really trust each other. So when there's no trust, things become more expensive, and if we can create trust, we can make better systems.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about some of the maybe the content you're creating, or the independent academy, or what else you're up to, Tomas?
Yes, sure. So with Independent Academy, what I am trying to do is to grab all the different knowledge that I'm gathering in the space and try to present it in a way that is easier for people to learn. I've been I done university in Argentina. When I came here to Australia, I was a student. First, I had a student visa, so I had to go through all the process here. I am very, very disappointed with the state of the educational system. I think we need something different. I think we need something better. Um, like to me, especially when it comes to technology. When I came to Australia, I did my education was in social media marketing, and I knew instantly as soon as I started the course that everything that I was being taught was out, outdated. It was 4 years ago, because I realized that the process that it takes around a couple of years to get the curriculum created and then to submit it to the government to approve. So by the time it comes and you go to the university to learn it, it's already outdated. It, it's pretty useless. And if we talk about stuff like Bitcoin, blockchain, Web3, even a few months is already too slow and too old. And to me, I am very interested in technology because I think is the thing that is evolving the most rapidly, and it's the thing that is open the more opportunities for people. And the reason why, like when I first started, my channels had the Bitcoin name in it. I was very focused on Bitcoin and I wanted to teach people about Bitcoin. But then what I realized is that a lot of times we confuse the tool with the value that we want that tool to gain. And if I wanted to teach people and I went off and showing my channel with the Bitcoin name in it, some people really liked it. Some people, it turned them off immediately because we are still at a very early stage. And also what I started to notice is that, yes, Bitcoin is wonderful, but there's also a lot of great tools that help me. I am very interested now in artificial intelligence. I use it a lot to create the academy itself. I'm using all the AI tools to help me become better, faster, more efficient. So to me, it's like, okay, what drives me to want to use tools like Bitcoin? And to me, it's always been a drive to become independent, to get away from banks so I can keep my own money, to work with DAOs in my own terms. Like everything that I've been doing was in order to become more independent. So everything that I'm learning, I'm researching, and I'm trying to teach these are the tools that are helping me become more independent, and hopefully they can help you too. And I've been doing that for a while now. It's still very much a work in progress, and I'm a big fan of building in public. So everything that I do is very transparent. Even if you go to the website, there's a section called Building in Public, and I show everything that I do. Even I have a little, I call it the Builder Journal, and I try to every day just write, this is what I've done, this is what I've learned, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm thinking, this is where I want the academy to go. I sometimes I miss a day or two. I'm trying to get more consistent, but my idea is to learn as much as I can, share all that with people, and learn to use these tools into the academy itself, and then teach about those tools at the same time. I've been doing some workshops with entrepreneurs one-on-one, trying to understand what are their problems in their business and how they can use this or that tool to solve that problem or to make that process more efficient. I'm doing a lot of stuff with that, and I am just about to launch a partnership, because everything that I'm doing in Independent Academy, I do it in English. But because I was born in Argentina, I speak Spanish. I try to teach this stuff to a lot of people in emerging countries as well. I am partnering with a group of educators to grab all this content and all this knowledge and make it available in Spanish for with a lot of Latin American focus, especially when I go back to Argentina, do a lot of events and stuff. So I'm doing that as well. But we have not launched that part yet. But by myself, I will always continue to update the Independent Academy, the English part as well, because that to me is very important.
Fantastic. I guess just in summary, then I've absolutely enjoyed this interview thoroughly. But do you want to maybe just share some thoughts on the future of Bitcoin? I like what you mentioned there, and I think a lot of people still haven't joined the dots with AI, because computers kind of need computer money, to do the things. A computer, I've said this before, can't go into a bank and jump through all the loopholes that we spoke about before, or computers are a global network. They don't know about borders and that type of thing. So I think people are kind of missing how powerful Bitcoin and crypto can be when tying into AI. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts just on the future of Bitcoin and crypto.
Yeah. Well, I think these are two extremely powerful technologies. So they will merge um, at some stage. There's already some interesting projects. Like I interviewed Charles Lesieur, who's the creator of Sats for AI, and what he's doing is he's grabbing all the open AI models and creating an interface that you can interact with them, and you pay using Sats through the Lightning Network. So instead of having to buy a subscription, you pay per use, because using something that like the Lightning Network, you can avoid, like you can do the microtransactions that you cannot do in the traditional term.
Yeah.
So in the traditional system. So in something like ChatGPT, you need a subscription model, because in a banking system, like there is a minimum threshold that you need to be able to charge in order to make that transaction worthwhile. I think he told me it was, I believe, 30 cents. So you cannot do sub 30 cents payments, but some with Lightning, you absolutely can. So that's an interesting way that we're starting to see both systems converge, and it's a great way for people that don't want a full subscription for Chat GPT and want to be able to use and support the open source models, which are getting quite good in some aspects. They might not be as good as the centralized ones, but they are developing quite quickly. So I am very excited to see this convergence of these both technology camps, and I think they're both incredible opportunities for people to start leveraging all this combined power. But if we talk about the future for Bitcoin, I think at the moment there is a lot of talks and a lot of excitement about the ideas of creating rollups and having this ability of creating, like, I'm not a very technical person. I'm more of someone that is trying to learn and then educate in common language to the general people, general population. But for what I understand, rollups would be a better version of sidechains. So it would be like something like Rootstock, but like we spoke in the beginning, the bridge between Bitcoin and Rootstock, it's not fully trustless. It's trust minimized. There is still a little bit of trust, even though every time they're trying to make that trust be less and less and less. And we are now at a point that the trust assumptions are very small. But the main goal with the rollup would be a completely trustless bridge that you can just go in and out of Bitcoin into this rollup world seamlessly and completely without friction. And then these rollups, they can be different blockchains and they can be created with different ways. So you can have an EVM rollup, you can have an SVM rollup if you want to replicate something more like what Solana is building, and you can have DApp specific rollups, kind of like what Cosmos is building, and then you could potentially see an entire ecosystem on top of Bitcoin itself. And basically you're creating all these transactions that are happening in the rollups, and then you're aggregating into one transaction, and you put that into the Bitcoin blockchain. And that could also be great for doing transfer of value with less fees, and creating a lot of different use cases that you cannot do on Bitcoin now, and you could do using a sidechain, but the trust assumptions in a rollup world, then it would be better. It would be like a stronger version of a sidechain, like the next evolution of Bitcoin, if you will. So there's a lot of excitement about this. A lot of projects trying to build, trying to release their first versions. There is a company called Bitcoin Startup Labs, which they are creating. They are trying to help a lot of the builders in that particular space get funding and get going. And they just created as a test. They created their own social community token called Lab, and they did a free airdrop for people that been educating on Bitcoin or building on Bitcoin. Like I got some lab tokens because of the work that I do, and they were issued on the first version of what a CK rollup on Bitcoin would look like, and it was created by a team called Bison Labs, and it's super interesting because they are using the same technology that people are using to create ordinals, to create NFTs on Bitcoin, which basically is just a way to add different kind of information into the Bitcoin blockchain. So what they did, and it's very early technology, still we don't know where it's going to go, but what they created is they created this CK environment, and they are grabbing all the information of that blockchain, and they're putting it into Bitcoin as using ordinals. So that information, once it's in Bitcoin, is there forever, and that's like the state of their chain. So that's how they keep the whole thing running. So they issued this token, and I went and I claimed, and it was like super fast, super cheap, and it's a very, very exciting time. I think there's a lot of different teams. There's a lot of different ideas. It's still, I want to be a little bit hesitant. I don't want to say like this is going to be great. It's going to be a revolution. Everybody jump in now. I don't want to go that far. I want to say that I am excited. I think there's a lot of interesting possibilities, but it's very early, and we need to go to the stage of, okay, what do these rollups look like? Like what can actually be built now? What kind of use cases can we get out of them without creating unnecessary risks? Every time with a new system, you have to test it. You have to make sure there's no bugs. You have to make sure that everything works as it should. So I have both excitement and caution, and trying to find a balance in between. But I think for people that are interested in the space, now is a very good time to start paying more attention, because there's a lot of stuff happening.
Fantastic answer. Well, that's been an amazing interview. I'll post all the links down below to follow the Rootstock ecosystem, your Twitter, Independent Academy, and all the work you're doing. And we'll have to have you on again in future. But thanks so much for joining us today, Thomas.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I am very happy that there's more interest in Bitcoin now, because teams like Rootstock have been building on Bitcoin since 2018, and I don't think they're getting the attention that they deserve. So I am so happy that now more attention is being moved into Bitcoin. So happy to do this whenever and talk more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bitcoin DeFi continues to be a big theme and a big focus for us and a lot of people for this market cycle. So have a great day, mate, and we'll catch up again soon.
Likewise. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.